Hi, good morning everybody. How are you? All are fine? Okay. Now also our online class continuing. We expect maybe here is some changes, especially the senior classes. Okay. Last week there is one report, September, October or October. Here is our school reopened from 9th to 12th. But again COVID-19 spread everywhere. That's why here is some restrictions. We can't open our school. That's why here only one solution, that is the online class. Okay. What about your study level? Did you study everything? Okay. Then another exam have one speciality. Maybe there is included map work. Okay. I will give more details related to map, and also there is some question answers. We want to make one map study. How to make map study, I will give more explanations related to that work through WhatsApp. You don't worry about that. Then everything is over. I mean reading, writing, and also studying everything. Okay. Then in last class we discussed something related to October Revolution. Okay, what is the reason behind it, the October Revolution? What was the main things related to October Revolution and everything we discussed earlier. Now here we want to discuss what happened after the October Revolution. Okay, today we want to discuss what happened after the October Revolution. That's why what is our next heading? Yes, what changed after October? Okay, we moving on another topic. What is that? What changed after October? What changed after October? It is our another topic. What changed after October? Okay. The Bolsheviks were totally opposed to private property. Okay, here is the Bolsheviks. They completely opposed what? The private property. They are not supported the private property. Most industry and banks were nationalized in November 1917. November 1917, what happened there? Most banks nationalized. Okay, most of the industries and banks nationalized. We already discussed earlier. Then this meant that the government took over ownership and management. Okay, most of the banks and industry nationalized. That means that here is government took over ownership and management. Land was declared social property and peasants were allowed to seize the land of the nobility. Then there is considered land, that is the social property, and also here is the peasants can seize the land from nobility. അല്ലേ, നോബിൾസിൻ്റെ കയ്യിൽ നിന്ന് ലാൻഡ് സീസ് ചെയ്യാൻ അല്ലെ പിടിച്ചെടുക്കാനുള്ള പവർ ആർക്കുണ്ടായിരുന്നു? പെസൻസിന്. Then in cities, Bolsheviks enforced the partition of large houses according to family requirement. Then another thing, what happened in cities, there is Bolsheviks enforced the partition of large houses according to family requirements. Maybe there is large houses, there is partition according to family requirements. According to family needs, there is houses also partitioned. അല്ലേ, വലിയ വീടാണെന്നുണ്ടെങ്കിൽ അതുപോലും വിഭജിച്ച് ഓരോരുത്തരുടെ ഫാമിലിയുടെ നീഡ്സിനനുസരിച്ച് ഓർ റിക്വയർമെൻറ്റിനനുസരിച്ച് ഡിവൈഡ് ചെയ്തിരുന്നു. ദാറ്റ് ഓൾസോ they banned the use of the old titles of aristocracy. There is completely banned the old title of aristocracy. Then to assert the change, new uniform were designed for the army and officials. Listen, there is forcefully there is some changes. Okay, what are the changes? New uniforms were designed for the army and the officials. Army and officials, they have a new uniform design. And following clothing competition organized in 1918 when the Soviet head was chosen. Okay, there is clothing competition started in 1918. Listen, now we are discussing, here is what changed after October Revolution? What are the changes? The first one, totally opposed private property. The first change, oppose private property. Okay. Then oppose private property, that is the first change. Then what is the another thing? Banks and industries nationalized. Okay, banks and industries nationalized. What is the after effect of banks and industries nationalized? Yes, government took over the management. Okay, government took over the management. Okay, then what is another thing? Land was declared social property. Okay, land declared social property. At the same time, we know that there is persons, yes, seize the land from nobility. Nobles in the from nobility. Okay, persons seize the land from nobility. What is the another change? Yes, Bolsheviks enforce the partition of large houses according to their needs. Okay, next one, partition of large houses according to their requirement. Then lastly, the assert changes in army and officials uniform. Okay, change in uniforms, whose officials and army officers, officials and army. Okay, here is a uniforms. Then new uniforms were designed for the army and the officials. Okay, listen, change in uniform, that is the new, it creates, there is a clothing competition. Okay, there is organized clothing competition. Okay, in which year? 1918, especially in case of a hat. Okay, these are the main changes. Firstly, here we discussed what are the changes after October Revolution. Okay, after October Revolution, what are the changes here is, firstly, we know that they opposed the private property. The Bolsheviks opposed the private property. Then they decided the banks and industries were nationalized, and also here is took over the ownership and management. The government took over the ownership and management. Then land declared as the social property. The person seized the land from the nobility. Then another thing is the large houses, partition or divide the large houses according to their requirement. Then here is new assert. What is the to assert the change in new uniform were designed for army officials and army. Then here is after effect of this new uniform design, it created, there is one another problem, that is the clothing competition, especially happened in 1918. There is one item, that is the hat. Is it clear? These are the main changes. Okay, all of you listen here. If you try to this type of short note, it's very helpful in your case. Okay, in every paragraph you just read what are the important things included. There is, you will make some short note. I think it is very helpful for study. Okay, but for example, here is speedily you can identify what are the changes there is, like this type of writing. Am I right? Okay, then the Bolshevik party was renamed the Russian Communist Party. Okay, that means here is Bolshevik party renamed. What is that? Russian Communist Party. Bolshevik party renamed. There is new name. What is that? Russian Communist Party. Bolshevik party renamed, now it is called Russian Communist Party. Then in November 1917, the Bolshevik conducted the elections to the Constituent Assembly. Listen, 1917, what happened there? Bolshevik Party conducted the election to the Constituent Assembly, but they failed to gain majority support. They conducted election, but they failed to the majority support. In January 1918, the Assembly rejected Bolshevik measures and Lenin dismissed the Assembly. Listen, what happened 1918? There is the Assembly rejected Bolshevik measures and Lenin dismissed the Assembly. Who dismissed the Assembly? Lenin dismissed the Assembly. Which Assembly? Constituent Assembly. Okay. He thought the old Russian Congress of the Soviet was more democratic than an assembly elected in uncertain conditions. In March 1918, despite opposition by the political allies, the Bolsheviks made peace with Germany at Brest-Litovsk. Okay, here is Bolshevik Party renamed, that is the Russian Communist Party. But in November 1917, what happened there is, okay, the Bolshevik conducted the election to the Constituent Assembly, but failed the election. That means they didn't get more support. In January 1918, what happened there? That means after 2 months, what happened there? There is the Assembly rejected the Bolshevik measures and Lenin dismissed the Constituent Assembly. He thought the old Russian Congress of the Soviet was more democratic. What is the reason behind it? Lenin dismissed the Constituent Assembly because he thought the old Russian Congress of Soviet was not more democratic than an assembly elected in the uncertain condition. That is the main reason behind it. Okay, underline that. In March 1918, despite the opposition by the political allies, the Bolshevik made peace with Germany at Brest-Litovsk. In the years that followed, the Bolshevik became the only party to participate in the election to the old Russian Congress of the Soviet, which became the parliament of the country. That also want to underline. Listen, what happened here is in the years that followed, Bolshevik became the only party to participate in the election to all the Russian Congress Soviet. Okay, there only one party always participated. Which party? Bolshevik only participated the election process or the parliament. Listen, all the Russian Congress Soviet, which became the parliament of the country, Russia became a one-party state. Became Russia a one-party state because there only one party participated. Trade unions were kept under party control. There existed some trade union, but completely under the control of the this party because there is existing only one party. The secret police called the Cheka first and later OGPU and NKVD. Okay, here is a secret police. That secret police punished those who criticized the Bolshevik. Listen, now there only one party, that is the Bolshevik. The secret police punished, give some punishment on which type of people who opposed the Bolshevik. Many young writers and artists rallied to the party because it stood for socialism and for change. After October 1917, this led to experiment in the arts and architecture. Listen, here is after 1917, the art and architecture, there is some experiment. They took some experiments, especially in case of art and architecture, because they need some changes here. That's why they expressed their own views through this art. But many became disillusioned because of the censorship of the party encouraged. Listen, here is art and architecture experimented. ഒരുപാട് പരീക്ഷണങ്ങൾ നടത്തി, പക്ഷേ എല്ലാം തന്നെ സക്സസ്ഫുൾ ആയില്ല, അല്ലെങ്കിൽ പുറത്തേക്ക് വിട്ടില്ല. വാട്ട് ഈസ് ദ റീസൺ? ബിക്കോസ് ദർ ഈസ് എ സെൻസർഷിപ്പ്. ബിക്കോസ് ഓഫ് ദ സെൻസർഷിപ്പ് ഓഫ് ദ party encouraged. I repeat, here we discussed what changes after the October. That means what are the changes here is after October Revolution. Firstly, we discussed something. The main changes, Bolshevik opposed the private property. The banks and industries nationalized. That's why there is the government manage everything. Then we discussed here is another important change. Land they considered the social property. The peasants decided to seize the land from nobility or nobles. Then another important thing, the large houses were divided or partitioned on the basis or their requirements. Then each family's requirement, they partitioned the large houses. Then they decided to assert the change in the uniform, especially new design for the army and officials. It created, there is a clothing competition, especially in 1918. Okay. Then Bolsheviks renamed, another important change, Bolshevik renamed that party's name, that is the Russian Communist Party. Bolshevik renamed party name, that is the Russian Communist Party. Then another important thing, there is a election conducted, the Constituent Assembly, but they didn't get the major support. On that occasion, there is Lenin decided to dismiss the Constituent Assembly when in January 1918 the assembly rejected the Bolshevik measures and Lenin dismissed the assembly. Okay, Bolshevik measures rejected. That's why Lenin decided to dismiss the Constituent Assembly. What is the reason behind it? Because he thought all Russian Congress of the Soviet was more democratic than an assembly elected in the uncertain condition. In March 1918, despite the opposition by their political allies, the Bolshevik made peace with Germany at Brest-Litovsk. Okay, that's why there only one party. That means the Bolshevik only, they controlled everything. All Russian Congress of the Soviet, which became the parliament of the country, Russia became a one-party state. Okay, there is Russia became a one-party state. Trade unions were kept under party control. Trade unions party control, then everything under the party control. Then there is secret police. That secret police called Cheka. First time it called Cheka, later OGPU or NKVD. Okay, listen. There existed some secret police. For what purpose there is secret police? Yes, they punished. These secret police punished those who criticized the Bolshevik. Those who criticized the Bolshevik, that has some punishment. Okay, the police gave some punishment. Okay, that's why there is existed some secret police. Many young writers and artists rallied to the party because it stood for socialism and for change. There is some artist rallied to the party. What is the reason behind it? Because it stood for the socialism and for change. After October 1917, this led to experiment in the arts and architecture, but many became disillusioned because of the censorship of the party encouraged. Okay, is it clear? These are the main reason, or what are the main effects or after effect, or what are the changes after the October Revolution? Is it clear? What are the changes? Okay, then here is a box 3. You want to read that the October Revolution and the Russian countryside, two views. Okay, you want to read later. Then Civil War. What is the next topic? Civil War. Is it clear? What are the changes? Okay, these are the important changes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Then you want to add, there is a listen, 1918. January 1918, what happened there? Constituent Assembly dismissed. Then you want to add, there are only one party system. Okay, then another important thing, they appointed some secret police. This only. Okay, then next topic, the Civil War. Okay, can I clear the board? All of you listen here. When I wrote some important things on blackboard, sorry, not blackboard, our chalkboard, you want to write this in your rough book. or paper. That means you want to prepare some short note. I already told you how to prepare short note. What is the merit of short note? That's very, very important. Okay. Then we moving on another topic, that is the civil war. What is our next topic? The civil war. The civil war. When the Bolsheviks ordered land redistribution, the Russian army began to break up. Listen, when the Bolsheviks ordered land redistribution, Bolsheviks when started the land redistribution, Russian army began to break up. Soldiers, mostly peasants, wished to go home for to redistribution and deserted. Non-Bolshevik socialists, liberals and supporters of autocracy condemned the Bolshevik uprising. Their leaders moved to South Russia and organized troops to fight the revolutionaries, and whites controlled most of the Russian Empire. They were backed by French, America, British and Japanese troops. All those forces who were worried at the growth of socialism in Russia, at these troops and the Bolsheviks fought a civil war. Looting, banditry and famine became common. Listen, now here we discussed the civil war. What are the changes after the October Revolution? We already discussed. Then we want to discuss here is what are the reason behind it. There is which type of civil war there is started. When the Bolshevik ordered land redistribution, what happened there? The Russian army began to break up. Okay. Then soldiers, mostly peasants, wished to go home for the redistribution and deserted. What is the reason behind it? What is the reason behind all of you go back to home? Because for the redistribution and deserted. Non-Bolshevik socialist liberals and supporters of autocracy condemned the Bolshevik uprising. They condemned. Condemned means niragarikya. They avoided the Bolshevik uprising. Their leaders moved to South Russia and organized troops to fight the Bolsheviks. Listen, their leaders who condemned the Bolsheviks uprising. Okay, then have some leaders. That leaders started, there is some troops. Listen, they organized troops. For what purpose they organized troops? To fight the Bolsheviks. Okay, they organized troops to fight the Bolsheviks that we call Reds. During 1918 and 1919, the Greens, that is the socialist revolutionaries. Listen, there is Reds and Greens. Who are the Reds? That is the Bolsheviks. Then socialist revolutionaries that we call Greens, and Whites, that is the prose artist that we call Whites. But here is a three group of people who are that Red, Green, Whites. Okay, Red, who are included the Red? That is the Bolshevik. Okay. Next, green and also white. Okay. Here is a green, that is included socialist revolutionaries. Socialist revolutionaries, that is the green. Whites, pro-Chartist. These are the three groups: red, green, white. Red, green, white. Then here during 1918 and 1919, the Greens and white, the Greens and Whites control most of the Russian Empire. Listen, there is organized troops to fight the Bolsheviks. Bolsheviks fight in the troops organized. Then there is 1918. What happened? Greens and Whites, they controlled most of the Russian Empire. They were backed by French, American, British and Japanese troops. All those forces who were worried at the growth of socialism in Russia. Listen, these forces who were worried at the growth of the socialism in Russia, as these troops and Bolshevik fought a civil war, looting, banditry and famine became common. As these troops and Bolsheviks fought a civil war. അല്ലേ, അവിടെ ബോൾഷെവിക്സും ട്രൂപ്സും തമ്മിലൊരു സിവിൽ വാർ സ്റ്റാർട്ട് ചെയ്തു. വാട്ട് വാസ് ദ ആഫ്റ്റർ എഫക്റ്റ് ഓഫ് ദിസ് സിവിൽ വാർ? ദർ ഈസ് ലൂട്ടിങ്, ദെൻ ബാൻഡിട്രി. എന്താ ലൂട്ടിങ്, ബാൻഡിട്രി? യെസ്, മോഷണം, കൊള്ള, അല്ലേ, അങ്ങനെയുള്ളതൊക്കെ വരുന്നുണ്ട്. ആൻഡ് ഓൾസോ ഫാമിൻ, ദാരിദ്ര്യം. ഇറ്റ് ബിക്കെയിം കോമൺ. ഓക്കെ, വാട്ട് ബിക്കെയിം കോമൺ? Looting, then banditry. Next one is the famine. These are common there. What is the reason behind it? Civil war is the main reason. Supporters of the private property among whites took harsh steps with the peasants who had seized land. Such actions led to loss of popular support for the non-Bolsheviks. Listen, here is the supporters of the private property among whites took a hard step with the peasants who had seized land. Such action led to the loss of the popular support for the non-Bolshevik. Listen, here is lost the popular support for the non-Bolshevik because they awarded what? Yes, common property. That means somebody seized private property from nobility because here is white took harsh steps with these peasants. It create loss of the popular support for the non-Bolshevik. By January 1920, the Bolshevik controlled most of the former Russian Empire. എന്താണ് നോൺ ബോൾഷെവിക്കിന് അതിൻ്റെ സപ്പോർട്ട് കുറയാൻ കാരണം എന്താ വെച്ചാൽ പെസൻസ് വളരെ ക്രൂവലായിട്ട് ബിഹേവ് ചെയ്തു. അപ്പോൾ മോസ്റ്റ് ഓഫ് ദ പോപ്പുലർ സപ്പോർട്ട് ലോസ്റ്റ്. ഓൺ ദാറ്റ് ഒക്കേഷൻ ദർ ഈസ് എ ബോൾഷെവിക് കൺട്രോൾഡ് ദ റഷ്യൻ എംപയർ. ദേ സക്സീഡഡ് ഡ്യൂ ടു കോപ്പറേഷൻ വിത്ത് നോൺ റഷ്യൻ നാഷണാലിറ്റീസ് ആൻഡ് മുസ്ലിം ജാഡിഡിസ്റ്റ്. Cooperation did not work where Russian colonists themselves turned Bolshevik. In Kiva, in the Central Asia, Bolshevik colonists brutally massacred local nationalists in the name of the defending socialism. In this situation, many were confused about what the Bolshevik government represented. Listen, here is they succeeded due to cooperation with the non-Russian nationalities and Muslim Jadidist. Here is a Bolsheviks. Bolsheviks succeeded due to cooperation with the non-Russian nationalities and also here is a Muslim Jadidist. Okay. Then here is cooperation did not work where Russian colonists themselves turned Bolshevik. In here is Kiva, in the Central Asia, Bolshevik colonists brutally massacred local nationalists in the name of defending socialism. So, socialists defend ചെയ്തു എന്നുള്ളതിൻ്റെ പേരിൽ the name of defending socialism, there is a massacred the local നാഷണലിസ്റ്റ്. അല്ലേ, മസാക്കർ എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞാൽ എന്താ, കൂട്ടക്കൊല തന്നെ ചെയ്തിരുന്നു ഈ ലോക്കൽ നാഷണലിസ്റ്റിന്. In this situation, many were confused about what the Bolshevik government represented. On that occasion, many were confused. For what they confused? Because the Bolshevik government represent. Okay, what the Bolshevik government represent. Partly to remedy this, most non-Russian nationalists were given political autonomy in the Soviet Union. Okay, political autonomy in the Soviet Union that we call USSR. The state the Bolshevik created from the Russian Empire in December 1922. But since this was combined with the unpopular policies that the Bolshevik forced the local government to follow, like the harsh discouragement of nomadism, attempt to win over different nationalities were only partly successful. Listen, there is partly to remedy this. Remedy means ഇതിന് പരിഹാരം കണ്ടെത്തുന്നതിന് വേണ്ടി most non-Russian nationalities were given political autonomy in the Soviet Union. Okay, here is most of the non-Russian nationalities they given the political autonomy in the Soviet Union. Soviet Union that we call USSR. Okay, the state the Bolshevik created from the Russian Empire in December 1922. But since this was combined with the unpopular policies that the Bolshevik forced the local government to follow. Listen, But here is some unpopular policies that the Bolshevik forced the local government to follow, like the harsh discouragement of the nomadism. What do you mean by nomadism? Okay, we know that lifestyle of those who do not live in one place but move from area to area on their living. We already studied in our history, especially in the junior classes, what is the nomadism. They are always moving one place to another place. Have no settled life. എപ്പോഴും ഒരു സ്ഥലത്തു നിന്ന് മറ്റൊരു സ്ഥലത്തേക്ക് മൂവ് ചെയ്തുകൊണ്ടിരിക്കുന്നവർ. Earlier time we know that searching food, അല്ലേ, ഫുഡ് സെർച്ച് ചെയ്യുന്നതിന് വേണ്ടിയാണ് they always moving one place to another place. അപ്പോൾ here also for living, somebody always moving one area to another area, that we call here is a nomadism. Okay, then here also harsh discouragement of nomadism attempt to win over different nationalities were only partly successful. Here is a different nationalities, that's why only partly successful, this union partly successful, not completely successful. Is it clear? Okay, listen. Today we discussed what are the changes after the October Revolution. We already discussed something related to that topic. Here is one another thing, that is the civil war. Civil war created, here is some problem. What are the problem? Looting, banditry and famine, that became the common. Then what was the after effect of the civil war? We know that here is started the Soviet Union, that we call USSR, but that not completely successful. Here only the partly successful, that only we discussed. I think it's so simple, you don't worry about it. You read 3 times very carefully and also want to write some important things from this and study very well. That will be the solution. It's so simple. Okay, we will discuss later more question answers from this topic. Now at the time of concluding, that means we want to wind up our class, to be continued on next class. Thank you, children.